Hey everybody, this is Josh Runquist here, and we finally reached the mountaintop. The final episode of the Top 100 Albums of 2023, Part 10, the Top 10. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be wondering what's in this Top 10. Did their favorite albums make it in? Are they going to be upset by the albums that did make it in? I can't wait to either make you happy or very mad. Either way, it's my personal top 10. And before we get into it, I just need to remind everyone to check the rules down below so you understand how I go about ranking the top 100 every single year. But of course, I need to mention this over and over again. I can't beat this dead horse to death enough. Check out the other 90 albums that I've already talked about previously in this series. All of those albums are worth checking out. It's not just the 100 albums that I checked out this year, it's the top 100. There are so many albums that I didn't get to talk about this year because they didn't make the cut, I didn't get to hear them enough, I didn't enjoy them. There's so many styles of rock and metal out there. It's not a dying breed. Go out and check some stuff out. And I really hope something from albums 100 to 11 catches your fancy. And now, these are the 10 that I really want to show off for the top 10, and I hope you find at least one album here to enjoy as well. This is going to be a sad ride, because a lot of these albums are quite tragic, but I think you'll enjoy it. Coming in at number 10 is the Anchorettes with It All Began with Loneliness. This dark and downtrodden album is something that truly speaks to me. I love everything that's going on here. It is dark, it is depressing, but it has some of the best musicality that I've heard in 2023. Imagine King Crimson, Opeth, Pain of Salvation, Porcupine Tree, Edge of Sanity even. There's so many great things that are going on with this album. All clean vocals, I should add onto there as well. But this album is just pristine. This is the kind of album that I wish more prog fans would enjoy. This is the kind of album I wish more prog bands would be inspired by. And I really hope that that happens in 2023. No matter if you love progressive death metal and black metal, all the way to the jazziest progressive rock, you will find something to enjoy about this album. It is one of the best albums of 2023 for a reason, and you just need to check it out for yourself. Coming in at number 9 is Heinayana with their sophomore album, Shatter and Fall. This Texas band does not feel like they come from Texas. It is another band that feels like they are deep, dark in the forest of Scandinavia, putting out some of the darkest melodic death doom that you could hear. But it is from the Lone Star State, and they show that they can be just as dark and heavy any Scandinavian metal band. But with all that said, they also have some of the greatest melodic moments that I've heard this year as well. Their use of keyboards and the guitar riffs, magically doing the great melodies and harmonies to match up everything, is astounding. No matter the tempo, whether it gets a little bit faster, whether it gets a little bit slower, or those mid-tempo stompers, there's some fantastic stuff going on here. And the fact that a band like Wolfheart has really taken them under their wing and been able to show them across Europe, I really hope it makes them expand. Because, again, just their sophomore album and seeing what they're doing here, and I know they're already working on the third album, I can't wait to see what's next. This is the new generation of melodic death doom. Coming in at number 8 is Catatonia with Sky Void of Stars. And this album has been all over the map when it's come to my list. It was at the top of the year, especially since it came out in January. It also fell off the map for a while. But I really realized a couple months ago that this is one of the best albums of 2023. My overall favorite album from Catatonia is Last Fair Deal Gone Down. I love it because it explores pretty much every single side of Catatonia except for the Death Doom side that they did early on, and sadly, that side's never coming back. This album is like a 2023 version of that. They explore all the different sides of what Catatonia has done up to this point, exploring more with the electronics side, and it really does feel like a revitalized version of Last Fair Deal Gone Down. This is probably what City Burials should have been, as I know that's such a watershed moment in the Catatonia catalog, especially since it was supposed to be a Jonas solo album that they reworked into a Catatonia album. This is probably what should have came first, but also, if that album didn't happen, we might not have gotten Sky Void of Stars, so I'm okay with it all. And that said, I love this album. It is quickly becoming one of my favorite Catatonia albums, and easily one of the best albums of the year. Coming in at number 7 is Lunar with The Illusionist. The band's third album is a concept album of an illusionist, thinly veiled as a way of looking at real-life mental health struggles. And it just hit me something so very, very hard. And it gives me tears in my eyes even when I listen to the full album in its entirety to this day. And of course, the thing that I do love about this album, obviously besides thematically and conceptually, is the music. The music explores everything from progressive death metal to 30s jazz, and everything in between. There's a lot of great guest stars on this album, and I don't want to give anything away because some might really surprise you. But this album is full of magnificent musicianship and songwriting, lyrics that just pull on your heartstrings, and a finale where you basically get to choose your own ending. Is it happy or is it sad? You decide. But seriously, there is a reason why this is one of the best albums of 2023, especially one of the best, if not the best, prog album of 2023. Check it out for yourself. Coming in at number 6 is Blackbriar, with their Nuclear Blast debut, A Dark Euphony. Now this is an album that all gothic metal bands should aspire to. It's got a great atmospheric, almost fairy-like feel, but it gets so dark, gothic, and evil at the same time. It's like the highest of the skies meets the lowest of the hells, and it's done in such a magnificent way. Beautiful soaring vocals, dark, gloomy atmosphere, some of the greatest riffs in gothic music, just an overall great sense of symphonic feel, and a little bit of alternative tinges as well. Things that you don't necessarily see coming, but work so perfectly well. This is a band that I want to see explode and become one of the biggest bands of their genre. And it's already starting to happen. A lot of people are picking up on this band, and I'm so happy to see it. They deserve all the love and respect that they get, and they're only going to flourish from here on out. Go and check this album out and see what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 5 is Silent Skies with Dormant. And I can easily say without a shadow of a doubt, this is the best album the band has done to date. The duo of Tom England of Evergrey and Redemption and Vikram Shankar of almost every single band in existence in some way, shape, or form, and of course Redemption as well. They started off meeting in the band and decided that they have a love of cinematic dark pop, and they wanted to create it themselves and create some majestical, dark, sorrowful, and so many great elements of music that is really left out from the heavy scene. Over these 3 albums, they have shown such a great contrast and bombardment of different styles, and it all comes together in this dark, cinematic, ambient, dark pop, and this is the best example of it so far. There's a little more percussion on this album, the lyrics hit just as hard as ever before, if not more so. They even do some covers this time around of Bruce Springsteen, Linkin Park, and Iron Maiden. Quite a collection. And just everything about this album can bring you to tears. Like, if you think Adele is sad dark pop, you haven't heard Silent Skies. This is some of the best work, and even though it might be one of the lightest albums of 2023 on my list, it's one of the heaviest albums of 2023. Just check it out for yourself. Coming in at number 4 is the debut album from Death of Giants, Ventasorg, and this is by far, without question, the saddest album of 2023. The real-life concept album of a couple going through one of the hardest things you could ever imagine going through, losing your partner to cancer. Everything from the earliest stages of life, love, and everything in between, getting that notice from the doctor that you only have 2 to 5 years to live, and everything until the very end. It is a remarkably sad but cathartic album. I imagine for everyone that was involved on this album in any way, shape, or form, and if you listen to this album, if you've ever lost anyone in your life due to cancer or anything else that leads to their demise, you're gonna weep, you're gonna cry, you're gonna bawl your eyes out to this album in some way, shape, or form. It is one of the most heart-wrenching experiences of 2023 and one of the most heart-wrenching albums I've ever heard. But again, it's one of the most cathartic albums I've ever listened to as well too. It perfectly captures the binge and purge and the sorrow that comes from losing someone you love. Now, what's going to happen on the sophomore album, I can't even fathom, but I can't wait to see where things go from here. Taking the bronze medal this year at number 3 is Svalbard, with their Nuclear Blast debut, The Weight of the Mask. Previous Svalbard albums tackle so many things that happen in society, from absolutely tragic things that I can't talk about on YouTube into detail, to dealing with mental health. This time around, they really dive into the latter. You really see how the pandemic has transformed a lot of people, how it's affected self-doubt, mental health, having to put on a mask with that smiley face on, so no one really sees how sad and how much you're struggling. Of course, that's not just a pandemic thing, but you can really relate to it after the pandemic. I know a lot of people can. But there's one thing this particular album has that the other Svalbard albums doesn't really have. Hints of optimism. Of course, this album is very dark and gray, but there's little bright bits of color that shine through, and maybe that's just from being cathartic, maybe that's just from binging and purging the emotional levels that go throughout this album, but I feel better when I hear this album. And there's moments on this album where you can see that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what kind of mental health struggles that you're dealing with. At least that's how I choose to look at it. Don't get me wrong, this is still a very hard listen, and when you pay attention to the lyrics, it's another album to make sure that you got some tissues with you to be able to wipe your eyes from all the tears that'll come out. But when you come out the other side, binging and purging, being able to have that cathartic experience, and even noticing those little rays of sunshine and color, this is one of the best experiences that you can have in heavy music in 2023. Coming in at number 2 is Mercenary with Soundtrack for the End Times. Been almost a decade since their previous album, and a lot has changed within the band. Of course, the band has been ever evolving ever since its inception, and while I know a lot of people feel that their earliest albums are their best albums, I have to say contraire mon frère, as I feel like Soundtrack to the for the End Times is their best album to date. A perfect look at the state of the world that we live in right now, how we deal with mental health, the struggles that we deal with that mental health, and easily some of the best melodic moments the band has ever done. Of course, they'll always be known as a melodeath band, but they explore so much of more progressive and power metal this time around, and I love it for it. So much of the clean vocals shine through, and on a song like Anthem for the Anxious, you need those clean vocals to really lift up your spirits. Even though it's a dark song, it's a cathartic song. And that's the basis of the entire album. It's catharsis. There's so much going on here about the world that we live in right now, and even if we don't survive what could happen in the future, there's no reason to go out sad. Just try to be happy. Try to find something to appreciate in life and be able to move forward. And maybe if we do that, maybe we can fix a lot of the problems that we have in the world right now. At least, that's what I would like to think. But of course, again, musically, there's so much to love about this album. So catchy, so hooky, so heavy. It just contains everything that I love about melodic death metal, progressive metal, power metal, hard rock, everything combined. This is one of the best albums of 2023, and it takes the silver medal this year for a very good cause. This album rules. And if you don't believe me, even if you're an old school fan who doesn't like the new sound of Mercenary, I defy you, I challenge you to listen to this album and prove me wrong. And finally, coming in at number 1, taking the gold spot, the number 1 album of 2023 in my eyes is Night Demon with Outsider. The band's third album, and first in quite a bit of time, shows a dramatic change in the band. Of course, they're always going to have that 80s horror feel, which I truly appreciate. They're going to have that revival sound, that heavy metal, speed metal sound. But this has something that the previous 2 albums did not really focus on because they didn't need to. It has dynamics in a way that has never been done before in the band, and it works so well for the concept that's going on. It feels like the soundtrack to a horror movie you haven't seen yet. And if the way of the world goes the way that it should, I would love to see a full-on horror movie from this script, this soundtrack from Night Demon. I would love to see it happen because it just feels like it would fit so perfectly well. Musically, there's so many dark, mellow moments that happen, but it makes the faster parts feel faster, it makes the heavier parts feel heavier, it makes the epic moments feel more epic. When I first heard this album, I had no idea what to think, but towards the end of that first listen, I instantly fell in love with everything, and I knew it was going to be one of my top albums of the year. Little did I know it would take that top spot, but I'm so glad that it did. While I can understand why some people don't like this album, and they want that old school Curse of the Damned sound from Night Demon, first of all, you still get that in tracks on this album, but you get more than that. You get all the range of Night Demon in 2023, and I hope they continue to expand upon this as well. Remember, when it comes to dynamics, if you only focus on fast and heavy, it's all going to start to sound the same after a while. You need those dynamics to really build everything up, and when you're doing storytelling like this concept album, it just makes everything that much more impactful. Seriously, just close your eyes, listen to the lyrics, listen to the music, and just enjoy a great 80s cheesy slasher time. It feels so much fun, and you just might enjoy it yourself. There's a reason why it's my top album of 2023, and if you give this album a shot, you might just enjoy it yourself. And there we go. We have finally completed the top 100 albums of 2023, and concluding that, I have now done 750 album reviews in 2023. Through the top 10 albums of every year I've been alive, the top 10 albums of the month, the top 100 albums of 2023, and other lists that I've done in written form and on YouTube, I have done too much. And I hope you've at least appreciated something that I've done. I hope you've appreciated this list so far, and above all, I hope you found at least one album off of this album that was a new discovery and something you will enjoy. Now, what albums did I leave out? Because I know I left out well over 100 albums that almost made the list in some way, shape, or form. But what else did I miss? Do you like the list? Do you not like the list? Any new discoveries? Anything you're very upset that I didn't include, let all of it know down below. And if this is the first video that you checked out in this series, make sure to go back and check out the previous 9 episodes and see if you find something that you enjoy. And of course, if you don't want to hear my annoying voice, make sure to go over to heavydebriefings.weebly.com, where I do the written version of the top 100 albums of 2023. And this is my last review anything until 2024. So once again, I just want to thank you so very much for tuning in all of this time. It truly means the world to me. I'm going to be taking a break from pretty much everything Heavy Debriefings except for the Heavy Debriefings podcast, which will still go on because that's all 100% completely off the cuff, whereas everything else will just need to take some break while I recharge my batteries for January 2024. So until then, for Heavy Debriefings, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya.